Hello everyone, welcome to 12am coding. And today we are going to learn about a very important topic which is at the rate qualifier. Okay, so this particular annotation we use a lot in our Spring Boot whenever we do code, right? But there are lots of things which are related to this at the rate qualifier, which if we know, then we can do it in more better way. We can use it in more efficient way. Okay, so let's understand it. So in our last tutorial, we have understood about a very important concept, which is IOC container. Okay, IOC container. Okay, and what I have told that in IOC container, Spring Boot maintains lots of beans. Okay, lots of objects actually. So what we discussed that let's say there is a class. Okay, and this class is annotated with at the rate component. Okay, then Spring Boot will scan all those classes inside that particular package with the at the rate component, and it will create a bean or object inside your IOC container. Okay, let's say fruit. Okay, this is the thing. Now let's say if you want to use it, then how we will be using it with the auto-wired annotation. Okay, so you can do fruit and then fruit. So if you use it this way, then what it will do, Spring Boot will give you the bean. So this is what IOC, inversion of control. We are not creating the object. We are telling Spring Boot to create the object for us, and whenever is needed, we will use it rather than creating with the new method. Okay. So this is the thing about AutoWire. Okay, we see in the last tutorial. Now the thing is that this particular annotation, it will make AutoWire much stronger actually. Okay, so we'll see how we can do it. So with at the rate qualifier, our auto-wire will make much more sense. In which case, let's say if there are two objects with the same name, actually this particular object and this particular object with the same name exist, then how it will auto-wire? It will not known, right? Which to auto-wire. So let's see through the code actually how we can use that the rate qualifier annotation. So I'll be creating some classes here. So first of all, let me create one interface. Okay, let me create a fruit interface. Okay, and in this interface, I'll declare one method which is string. Okay, this is string taste, and let me create some classes. Okay, apple, and this apple is a type of fruit. So I'll implement the fruit interface into this one, and let me implement the method, and this method will say sweet. Okay, apple tastes sweet. And let me create one more class which is orange. Okay, and our orange will also implement our fruit. Okay, and let me define the method here, and let me say orange is sour. Okay, and what I will do, as we discussed in our last tutorial, that to know, to let the Spring Boot know that the bean it need to create of this particular classes, we need to provide at the rate component. Okay, as an annotation. So I just provided at the rate component over apple and orange. Now for testing it, let me create one fruit controller. Okay, and let me mark it as rest controller. Okay, and in this one, what I will do, I will create one get API. Okay, and this get API will be going to default, then public string, then your let's say test we will do, and we will return something out of it. Okay, let's see what we will return. So now what I will do, I will auto wire our interface here. Okay, and I'll tell fruit, and I will be calling this fruit dot taste method here. Okay, so we cannot create an object of this fruit, right? Because it's an interface. We have implemented two classes. Now we have defined with at the rate component. So Spring Boot will create the bean of these classes inside its IOC container. Okay, and we created one fruit controller to call this and see which class object we will get it. Okay, so let me run it and see what this API will return. So if you see, we got one error actually. Let's go through the error. Field fruit in com.fruit controller requires a single bean. Okay, but we found two. So just understand this. In controller, we define this fruit, but we are having two beans of fruit type, apple and orange, into our IOC. Okay, so this is what I told. That's the problem, right? This apple is there, this orange is there. Okay, this apple and this is orange. Both are of type fruit. Now, AutoWire got confused which bean to take inside, and it is saying action is consider making one of the bean as primary, updating the consumer to accept multiple beans, or using at the rate qualifier to identify the bean that should be consumed. So let's understand this particular thing. Let's go with at the rate qualifier. So it is telling to use at the rate qualifier to identify the bean which it need to use. So what I will do, I will use at the rate qualifier, but before that, let me name these beans. So for at the rate component, let's say I will provide apple here. Okay, and for this particular, let's say I'll provide orange here. Okay, or rather than apple orange, I'll provide apple fruit. Okay, and here orange fruit. Okay, now what I will do, I will, rather than auto wiring directly, if we run it right now also it doesn't aware because we just provide the name to these beans. Okay, this is the name actually. With this particular name, Spring Boot will contains these beans. Okay, now if I run this particular thing, then also I'll get the error because again, like Spring Boot has created apple fruit and orange fruit inside it, but we are not defining here. So what I will do, I will use at the rate qualifier here. Okay, and at the rate qualifier I will use with the, let's say, apple fruit bean you need here. Okay, and let me run it. It should now get the bean of type apple to you. So it ran successfully, it started. Let me now call localhost 8080. So it is saying apple is sweet. Okay, so I think this is making sense. So here we, like what Spring Boot did, Spring Boot has created Spring Boot has created the bean of apple fruit and orange fruit. And when you are auto wiring the fruit and you are marking at the rate qualifier, okay, let me create here, you are auto wiring, okay, and then you are telling qualifying, okay, okay, you are telling it to qualify with this particular bean, apple fruit. So it is getting the apple fruit for you and it is printing over here. Okay, so this is our first concept. Now second thing is, rather than doing it with at the rate component, what you can do, you can directly use at the rate qualifier here also. Okay, with these names. Okay, so I just use this. Okay, so it will not make any difference. So if I run it, then also in our fruit controller we are having the apple fruit, so it ran successfully. And if I run it, it is fine. And for example, if I provide orange fruit, then it will run your orange fruit also. Okay, okay, so it will tell orange is sour. So this is our second thing. Now let's say I'll just comment this out. Okay, and if I run it, if you remember, it told about at the rate primary annotation also. So what I can do, if we are having multiple beans of same type of fruit type, let's say we are having 100 fruits, apple, orange, grapes, banana, multiple. What you can do if you want to make one bean primary, so whenever that particular met object method is called, it will go and first search for the primary. Okay, so if I tell it, then it will go and I just remove this at the rate qualifier. So now it should call apple taste sweet because I marked it as primary. So this is the concept. Okay, then apart from it, one more thing actually. Okay, that rather than, if I am having at the rate qualifier also, okay, I removed it actually. If I provide the name of the objects, let's say here if I do orange, okay, with the class name, then also actually it will, okay, it is giving error because I haven't changed here. So if I change it here, then your fruit orange, okay, if I run this particular code now, then what will happen? Let's see. Okay, let me run it. It is saying orange is sour because this, we named this particular object as a class name actually. So that's why it is having the bean with the orange name. So orange is tasting good for it. Okay. So these are four concepts actually we read about. We can use at the rate qualifier here. Okay. We can use at the rate qualifier at the class level also. Then we can use at the rate primary to mark any bean as primary. Okay. And then fourth thing is we can define the name also with a name also, if we define the object, then also we are able to call the method of that particular class. Okay, so yes guys, that's it for this particular tutorial. I hope you understood this concept very well. So thank you and see you in the next tutorial.